So if you know me, you know that I love theme parks. I love all aspects of theme parks. And in today's video, we're going to do something a little different. We're going to talk about a haunt event, which is Halloween Horror Nights at Universal Studios Hollywood. Getting into haunt events has actually been a pretty recent thing for me. Over the last few years, I've really fallen in love with Knott's Scary Farm. I absolutely love that event. I almost made a video about it last year, but I just didn't get around to it. And by the time that I was ready to make a video, it was already like the event was over, like life moved on, so I felt like I missed the window. So this year I'm gonna try to make a video about Knott's Scary Farm once that event gets started. But Southern California has another very popular Halloween event at Universal Studios Hollywood called Halloween Horror Nights, and this year was actually my first time visiting the event. I was able to do all 9 mazes or haunted houses, whatever you want to call them. So in today's video, we're going to rank them up from worst to best. Before we get started, please like this video. Please leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think of Halloween Horror Nights at Universal Studios Hollywood. Or if you've been to Hollywood Horror Nights at Universal Studios Florida, I would love to hear about that event as well. And of course, please subscribe to this YouTube channel. YouTube says we have over 30,000 returning viewers every single month, but we're nowhere near 30,000 subscribers, so if you've watched more than one video, I would greatly appreciate your support. Thank you so much. And one more thing, please head over to the Theme Park Nerd Instagram and give me a follow. I would greatly appreciate that. The link is in the description. So something that really stands out about Halloween Horror Nights compared to Knott's Scary Farm is that Halloween Horror Nights has a lot more IP because they have a much larger company backing the event, which of course is Universal and Comcast. But one thing you should know about me before we dig into this event in particular is that I don't really watch movies, and especially horror movies. So I have like no connection to any of these franchises. Maybe like one, and I'll mention which one when we get to it. I did go to the event with my girlfriend, and she does like horror movies much more than I do, so I'll include some of her perspectives as well. But just know that I might make some mistakes. Like if you really love one of these movie franchises, or I think there's even a video game maze in here, I apologize that I don't know as much as you. I am a theme park person. I'm not really a movie person, as you can probably tell from my YouTube channel. So with all that being said, let's dig into this list. At number 9, I ranked the Terror Tram, which was themed to the Blumhouse. There were like different sections dedicated to the different Blumhouse franchises, which I thought was unique. The Terror Tram is very strange. It's not a conventional maze at all. In my opinion, it's much less atmospheric and a lot less scary than the other mazes. Like it's kind of a glorified scare zone. Like it's kind of a mix between a scare zone and a maze. The wait time for the Terror Tram was posted at an hour, and we ended up only waiting 20 minutes. So they were really pumping people through the Terror Tram, but as a result of that, there were sections where it was pretty congested. For pretty much all of the mazes, Halloween Horror Nights does a much better job of syncing their scare actors with like sound design and like strobe lights. So that means that the scares are pretty much on a timer, which is both a pro and a con in my opinion. For one of the black phone scares in particular, we were stopped in a crowd of people and we watched the same scare actor pop out like 3 times, and it was just like a tiny bit awkward, you know? Speaking of black phone, they had like ice skaters, and I thought that was really cool. That was pretty unique and interesting. Megan was the host and like the only like reoccurring character. Like she appeared on screen for the tram ride there, and then she was the only character to appear in like every single franchise, which was a little bit interesting. She kind of ditched us at the end though for the ride back to the park. So it was very unique taking the tram to like a scare zone, but again, it felt more like a scare zone than a maze to me. But I really appreciated how fast the line moved. Again, it was 40 minutes shorter than the posted wait time, so I really appreciate it. Moving on to number 8. This was actually the maze that we waited the longest amount of time for. It was the Poltergeist. This was the 3rd maze that we did during our day at Halloween Horror Nights. We finished it around 9:10. The wait time was 65 minutes, and again, it was the longest wait time of the night, which is so strange to me. Also, the wait time was in the Curious George parking structure, so it was really warm in there, and it wasn't even that hot when we went, but it felt like an oven in there. It was really miserable. The line moved really slow. There were so many express guests. It was kind of insane. And the quality of the maze just did not warrant waiting 65 minutes for it. There were so many dark rooms. It felt like half of the maze was just black walls, which really didn't add up. It felt much more lazy than some of the other mazes that we're going to talk about. I also felt like there weren't that many scare actors. There were some like cool like skull animatronics, which were pretty interesting. There's also like this creepy clown underneath the bed and like this weird skeleton dog animatronic. But like the set designs that they did have were basically just like bedrooms and houses and kitchens, which isn't the most interesting maze location to be placed in. Like there was only one hallway that looked unique and interesting, that had like a little bit of flavor, a little bit of character. It had like puffy walls, and then there was this clown which was synced up to a strobe light. I remember the sound design being pretty cool, especially as you enter the maze, but like it really was not worth waiting 65 minutes. It was absolutely shocking to me that this was the longest wait time we experienced. It just was not worth waiting in that really hot parking structure. I think it was incredibly stupid that they put a vast majority of the queue space within a parking structure that had very poor ventilation. Not a fan at all. Moving on to number 7. This is probably the franchise that I have the least connection to. It is WWE The Horrors of Wyatt 6. There just wasn't really anything that stood out to me about this maze. There were some black hallways. What I thought this maze did really well is that they used scare actors on both your left and right sides, like multiple times. But it did have some rooms where there were no scare actors at all. And I did really like how there was like one on one side and one on the other. Like that made it feel like really claustrophobic. It made it feel like you were surrounded. There were some instances of some really cool lighting, but I'm sure if you're a WWE fan, this maze will definitely be much cooler for you. I was told that the man that this maze was based on passed away, so that is really tragic. Rest in peace. It's always cool to see like a legacy live on, you know? I was told that the maze was pretty faithful to the character, so that's very cool. But moving on to number 6, we're going to talk about Fallout. This is probably one of the least scary mazes. It felt like an odd mix of locations. I was told it reused some sets from previous mazes, so that's pretty lame. But I feel like the concept of like a post-apocalyptic America could have been like a really cool maze. It could have been utilized so much better in my opinion. So this maze does feel like a lot of wasted potential. I believe Fallout is a video game that was made into a show, and then this maze was based off of the show. There was like a big old radioactive bear animatronic. So that was pretty cool. That was a really huge set piece. But other than that, it felt like Fallout was a lot of wasted potential in my opinion. Moving on to number 5 is Jason Universe. I think this maze did like distractions better than any other maze. Like it would draw your attention with like some really cool lighting or like a really cool figure, and then they'd have a scare actor pop out from another side. So it was really cool visually. Like drew your attention just enough for a scare actor to get you. This might be the maze that utilized strobe lights and sound design the best. There was also like a really freaky moment with a decapitated body leaning forward, and it is pretty cool to have like the same antagonist through the entire maze. There was also this really cool moment at the end with like a bow and arrow, and then another scare actor popped out with like an arrow in her head, and she did like a really good job selling the idea that she just got shot in the head with an arrow. There was also a moment where the Jason scare actor like physically punched through a dummy's chest and holds out a bloody heart, so that's also like pretty creepy. But overall, Jason was very scary. I understand that Jason is like a slasher icon, so I know that this maze will mean a lot more to other people compared to me. Moving on to number 4 is one of the most popular mazes in all of Halloween Horror Nights. It is Terrifier. So this maze is probably the most gory of all of the mazes within Halloween Horror Nights. Gore is really not my thing. I really don't care for it. I never liked Waxworks at Not Scary Farm. That was always one of my least favorite mazes. So I'm okay that they replaced it. One of the big selling points with Terrifier was that they were using water to like splash you to like simulate like blood. I didn't really get that wet. The big old entrance sign that said Terrifier had like misters at the top, and there was a leak at the entrance, and I think that was like the only thing that got me wet, because when I exited the maze, my body was completely dry, but the top of my hair was wet. So that was it. Really not bad at all. I heard that there was a restroom scene in this maze, and it smelled like dookie, so I was really worried about that. I was like, why would they do that? That sounds super unpleasant. But walking through there, it didn't smell too bad. I didn't really smell anything. I did smell popcorn. There was one like circus scene, and it smelled like popcorn in there. There was a bleach smell that was actually really strong. That was much stronger than the restroom smell. Thank God, honestly. I was worried. What I heard, I thought it was gonna smell like death in there, but it didn't smell too bad. I did hear a story that someone vomited in there because it smelled so bad, so maybe they toned it down. I don't even know. You get really close to one of these like creepy clown animatronics at the beginning, and just like Jason Universe, it's kind of cool to have the same antagonist through the entire maze. It's a very, very creepy clown. That's not really my thing. And again, this maze is very gory, so not my thing either. It did look like they poured a lot of money into this maze. Like there were maybe like one black room, but that was about it. There were lots of set design. It seems like this is one of the most highly anticipated ones this year. They did have the clown like roaming around other parts of the park, and I saw a lot of merch for him, so it seems like people really like him. But moving on to number 3, we're gonna talk about Monstrous. This was a really cool maze. This was actually the first one that we did, and there were some sections that were outdoors, so like the sunlight did kind of leak through, so I'm sure that this maze is better at night. But even with the daylight, I was still very, very impressed. There were like 2 or 3 really large animatronic figures, and they had a scare actor interacting with one of them, acting like their legs were getting bitten off, so that was pretty creepy. This maze is also not based on a film. It's based on like lore. It's based on like stories of the weeping woman. This maze was my girlfriend's favorite. She really, really connected with it. They had a scare actor outside of the maze. He kind of sounded like Puss in Boots. He was like, "Are you afraid of the dark?" Speaking of which, there were some black rooms towards the end of the maze, but again, like they tied it into the story of the maze by asking, "Are you afraid of the dark?" before you're led into the dark rooms. So like, I'll give that one a pass. At least they give it an excuse, unlike Poltergeist. Poltergeist, you're just walking through black rooms for what feels like an eternity. Monstrous actually like tied it in, and again, they had those really impressive animatronic figures. There was a really cool atmosphere through the whole maze. Overall, I was very, very impressed with it. Moving on to number 2. This is like by far the most popular maze within Halloween Horror Nights. It is Five Nights at Freddy's. This was the last maze that we did, and we ended up only waiting 40 minutes, but we had other people in our party that waited like 3 hours for this maze, so that is insane. I don't think I would ever wait 3 hours for a maze, but 40 minutes at the end of the night was completely fine. I was totally okay with that. They had a lot of very, very short scare actors within this maze that actually looked like children. It was like kind of concerning for a second. I was like, is Comcast using child labor right now? But it was crazy. At one point you walk through the security room, which was really, really detailed. There was a moment where Freddy's face like popped up on one of the screens, which was pretty terrifying. This is like the one franchise that I have like a vague connection to. I think I played the games like once. I didn't see the movie, but I used to watch like YouTube videos about Five Nights at Freddy's, and that stuff would keep me up at night as a child, so I did not like that, especially because I was a kid. I've always loved Disney, so I've always been around animatronics, and I also always had my birthday parties at Chuck E. Cheese when I was little, so Five Nights at Freddy's just kind of drew my attention through those aspects, and obviously it terrified me. So seeing these characters like in real life was a little unsettling, especially when they were in the dark. When seeing the Foxy animatronic in like the darkness, he was frozen. It was late at night. I was like, I wonder if the actor, or like they're puppets, so I was like, I wonder if the puppeteer went home and then they just left Foxy there in the darkness. And as soon as we walked by him, the lights went off, or the lights turned on, and he made this loud noise. I lost my mind. That was actually the most scared I was for the entire event. That was genuinely terrifying. And then walking by Bonnie in the darkness, it's just so unsettling. It sent like a chill down my spine. I was like, oh, no. This is not the vibe. But Foxy was like genuinely terrifying. It was very unsettling seeing these big detailed silhouettes in the darkness. Like they're pretty iconic characters too, so that was really effective for me, especially with the jump scares combined with the lighting. I love the use of Chica's cupcake throughout the maze. That was probably one of the most common characters to see, and it got pretty close to you. And it moved pretty quickly, so that was pretty scary. I thought it was pretty lame that there was only one animatronic. I was expecting this maze to be full of animatronics. It was really just the one Freddy animatronic at the beginning. Even then, I watched a walkthrough of Universal Florida's Five Nights at Freddy's, and they have Bonnie, Chica, and Freddy all in animatronic form at the beginning, so it's really lame. Like, they have the other two animatronics behind a curtain, so it's a very obvious budget cut, even though it's very clear that they spent a lot of money on this maze. I was disappointed that all the other animatronics were puppeteered, but like, I understand why that is. Like, animatronics are very expensive. Like, this maze is getting insane crowds, so I feel like they could have spent more money to add like real animatronics instead of these puppets. But the puppeteers themselves are very talented. Again, that Foxy in the dark was very still. I actually thought the puppeteer went home, because again, it was after closing time when we were physically walking through the maze. But no, that was very scary. Very scary. There was one moment where they used Foxy's shadow at the beginning of the maze, where one of those child scare actors popped out. So that was very scary. They also had a Foxy that would like run down the hallway, which was pretty cool. You get very close to some of those puppets, and it is terrifying. Very terrifying. I wasn't a fan of this entire maze. Is within a soundstage at Universal, and the last section of the queue is within the same soundstage that the maze is in, so it was very loud in there. The air conditioning was nice, but like the mazes, the noises, the screaming, the crashes, the bangs from the jump scares, you would just hear that constantly while you're waiting for the maze, so that's not ideal. But again, the line was moving pretty quickly when we were going through it, so I can't really complain. But for all the other mazes within Halloween Horror Nights, you're pretty far away from the physical mazes, so you're just not trapped with those sounds. And especially being in the one large building like that, it felt like it was just echoing in there. This maze also used carpet pretty well. Like, when you enter the arcade carpet, you can like see the difference in the floor, and you can feel the texture change under your feet. The kitchen with Chica smelled like pizza, which it might have been intentional. I believe there's a cafe like right next door, so it might have been from that, but who knows. When the real Freddy animatronic was like singing and dancing, they were playing Talking in Your Sleep, which is a good song. So overall, this was very impressive. I do not recommend waiting 3 hours for it. I would say if you don't have Express like myself, save it for last, or try to hit it early, but you have to be like, you can't get caught up in that crowd, man, because I feel like everybody went to Five Nights at Freddy's first thing. But my personal favorite maze within Halloween Horror Nights was Scarecrow. There were so many scare actors, and they were hidden very well, so they popped out. They were popping out frequently. This maze had a really cool vibe. I love the music. It felt very unique. It didn't feel like any of the other mazes. It felt very scary without being too gory, like Terrifier. I would say that this was the scariest maze, and Terrifier was the second scariest maze, but I give huge points to Scarecrow for not relying on gore. It was a very unique vibe, probably the most fun I had in any of the mazes, maybe aside from Five Nights at Freddy's. It's the only maze at Halloween Horror Nights that was an original concept. Parts of the maze smelled like burning wood or like a fire, so that also contributed to the atmosphere. And those scare actors, they were just, it was consistent, it was scary, it felt like they were everywhere, and they were hidden very, very well, so it was hard to guess where they were gonna come from next. Overall, very scary maze, very, very impressive. I had the least amount of problems with Scarecrow. So that was my experience at Halloween Horror Nights. Just in case you're curious, I'm gonna let you know what order we hit the mazes in. We did go on a Thursday night, so I believe it kind of emptied out later in the night, which was why we were able to hit Jason Universe and Five Nights at Freddy's. But as I mentioned, we started with Monstrous, then we ran over to Terrifier. We only had to wait like 40 minutes, I think it was 40 minutes for Terrifier. And then we got in our longest line, which was Poltergeist. Again, it was 65 minutes or so. We took a break, and then we hit the Terror Tram, which was only around 20 minutes or so. We took another drink break, and then we hit Fallout, which was about 30 minutes, Scarecrow, which again was about 30 minutes. Wyatt 6 was the shortest one. It was probably like 5 to 10 minutes. And then we hit Jason and Five Nights at Freddy's. Those two were both around 40 minutes. So I feel very fortunate that I was able to hit all of the mazes without using Express all in one night. I was very, very impressed. As for the scare zones at Halloween Horror Nights, I will say that I think Scary Farm does them better. There were only like 3. There was like a Raven one, there was one by Monstrous, and there was one closer to the front with like clowns. The clowns at Knott's are definitely cooler. I did like the fire effect thingy though. That was pretty interesting. So overall, I think I still prefer Knott's Scary Farm, but experiencing Halloween Horror Nights for the first time was very, very cool. Before we wrap things up, I'm going to tell you how my girlfriend ranked them, just so you guys can have a perspective of someone who like actually knows about these franchises. Number 1 was Monstrous, number 2 was Five Nights at Freddy's, 3 was Scarecrow, 4 was Jason Universe, 5 was Terrifier, 6 was Wyatt 6, 7 was the Terror Tram, 8 was Fallout, and 9 was Poltergeist. And that is going to be my review video for Halloween Horror Nights. Have you been to this event? Do you agree with how I rank the haunted houses? Please let me know down in the comments below. Please like this video, and of course, please subscribe to this YouTube channel. I would greatly, greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much, everybody, and I will catch you later.